Brought to you by Hallow, the world's #1 prayer app. Ask me anything.
What is the most common relationship advice people get wrong?
Relationship advice that people get wrong, that they can do something to change their romantic partner. That there's some kind of behavior, some kind of something that I can do to make you do something different. We just don't have that kind of control like we wish we did.
Can you give an example?
Maybe the most common question I get is, I want my partner to stop drinking. How do I make my partner have more sex with me? How can I, you can do things like not be an ass, like be kind. You can do things like be hygienic. You can do some things, but the other person ultimately has to make a decision. More heartbreaking, how can I help my husband be less depressed? How can I help my wife be less anxious? Or how can I help my wife with her postpartum? The challenge is you can help with the environment, but at the end of the day, somebody's got to want to or be able to or take your hand and walk with you towards healing. And it's hard when you love somebody and they're hurting on the other end of that. But I think the most common advice is 5 tips to make him fall for you, or 3 tips. It's just all bull crap, dude. You can create a context, but the most important thing is, can you sit down and look at somebody and say, here's what I want, here's what I need. Will you be with me? And they have to say yay or nay. And that's scary, scary. That's a lack of control that we don't have a psychology for in our culture.
So I'm going off script here a bit. So I think it's more prominently female than male, is my guess, that we grow up with the idea somehow of we can change him. You know?
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from.
I think I don't know how old that sentiment is. But I'm guessing it's 25 or 30 years old. Maybe I can be way off from that.
Oh, way older. I mean, I think that's been...
Because I think my mom and dad, in their generation of being married, they're in their 70s, men just were and women just were. And then it became this idea that masculinity, this idea, and there's all different derivatives of this, but there's something wrong with it. The fact that men go to work and duke it out with each other every day over tiny little postage stamps of yard, right? There's something wrong with that inherently. And so if men would just fill in the blank with any number of different behaviors, and somehow that became a woman's responsibility. And she's always held, not always, but for the last couple hundred years especially, she always held chastity, always held like the cornerstone here, because women have disproportionately held if this thing goes bad, right? You have to remain chaste 200 years ago because getting pregnant could kill you, right? Or it could bring great shame to your family if you got pregnant. So you had to, or you have to just kind of suck it up for the last thousands and thousands of years because you weren't allowed to have a job. You weren't allowed to own property, right? So I think in the last 25, 30, 40 years, as things have the playing field has begun to level a bit with same jobs and rising incomes, and women just have more options. They have looked at men as projects, like, oh, I can make him X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, so it sounds almost like, so I'm a Gen X, that it's kind of, we were the first generation of...
I'm totally making that up. That's actually a good question, but it sounds right to me.
Yeah, because I mean, I know there's the idea of, you date the guy that's kind of an ass, but you're like, and you know that everyone's told you he is, but you're like, oh, I can
I'll be the one who
can change him.
Yeah.
And
I'll
never
tame
works.
the wild dragon. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. Ben, I know you were called the wild dragon back in high school, so I've never even heard those
Nailed
words.
it. How'd you know?
I mean, your tattoo that says wild dragon across your back, but I'm making that up. But and let's take for granted, maybe for all of human history, women have thought, I can change him. I think there's been this assumption that men don't have to. I don't have to change. I can just be the way I am, however I want to, whenever I want to, and that's just not the case anymore because women can leave. They've got other options, and so maybe that's it.
All right, question 2.
Does that ring true?
Oh, I think so, because I think so I'm thinking back to, because I'm a huge history buff, especially like 14th, 15th century history. And when women, we didn't have the rights, we couldn't divorce or leave. But I know that, there was a way that women would manipulate situations you deal with the power you have.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I think that that's probably gone through the centuries and, the decades as women had more power because it was the only way they had to control their environment.
Right.
And so,
stay safe and not dead, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to figure out some way to get what I want because I don't have a say-so. And then all of a sudden when things were not completely level, but more level. And
you could get a mortgage and a credit card.
Right, exactly. We could get a bank account without having to get my husband's thoughts on it.
That's when things went sideways in the Kelly Daniel household, but keep going.
Anywho. But yeah, so then all of a sudden it was like, well, now I can fix him. And
I kind of have my life exactly as I want it.
Right.
And I want the bad guy, right? I want
bad boy.
I want the bad boy, but I want him to be the bad guy in the world that I create.
In my context.
There you go.
Within my guardrails that are okay.
Yeah.
And I think there's also something, and I may be out in left field here on this one, but this is probably not overly kind to my own sex either. But there's a whole idea that we can change him because we're so amazing. Like, he's going to want to be with us, so he'll change.
Oh, gotcha.
I think there's definitely some of that about I'm the one. I'm the one.
I can do it.
And I'm the one that can change it when no one else could.
That's interesting because I've always known about the world-shifting power of teenage male American Western arrogance. When they would line men up. So like for all human history, they'd line up, warriors and say 99 out of 100 of you are not coming home. And there was a zen about it. There was whether it's Marcus Aurelius, whether it is the ancient Eastern, there's a zen, I'm going to give my life to a greater cause. This is my role. And then you get this adoption of a Western male in World War I, World War II. They lined them up and they said, hey, 90% of y'all are not coming home. 9 out of 10 of you will die. And they lined them up and looked to the left and looked to the right and it was like, sucks to be that dude because I'm coming home. And there was this sense of this insane self-aggrandizement. Like I will beat the odds at every turn. And if enough people think that, weirdly, a lot of y'all beat the odds. But it never occurred to me that women do that too. Like, I'll change him. I could change him.
Oh yeah, I think that's. Do you agree, Taylor? Is that still a thing?
I can do it.
Yeah, I can be the one because either I'm so amazing, not even that, but just like I can do it. All these other women who talk about what a horrible human he is. I got it. There's something in me, or he'll see something in me and he'll be like, oh, she's the one. I'll change so I can keep
you're
her.
so worth it. I'm going to change for you.
That's it. It's I'm so worth it. Huh. Look at me learning today on the John Delony Show. That's awesome.
All right. Question 2. When should you delete pictures of your ex-significant other?
Oh, geez. This is a question that's like beyond me because I didn't grow up in this world. I've still got I remember my wife hilariously made back in the day, you just had stacks of photos that you would get developed. My wife one time, we were probably 3 or 4 years in, she made it. It's hilarious. And I still have it. I mean, it's somewhere in the Delony archive somewhere. But she made me a photo album of all, any ex photo that she found. And it was hilarious. From
That's amazing.
Middle school, high school, into college, she made this thing and it was funny and it was her kind of being like, I won. But also she's like, well, she was really pretty. And so it made for a hilarious interaction, but I don't know. I'm sure there's pictures in our house somewhere in an old photo album of my wife's boyfriend. I don't know. I could care less. I know the game has shifted dramatically to all this is public facing and there's these public declarations. What was it that, who's that country artist that's kind of a big deal right now? Zach something.
Zach Bryan?
Yeah, whose girlfriend said she found out that she got dumped on Instagram, on an Instagram post. Or that's just a world that's foreign to me. So I guess here's the what I would say is the magic answer. Talk to each other. And I could give 7 boxes of farts if the photos of my wife's ex-boyfriends are somewhere in a photo album. If they're on a frame on the wall, that's weird, right? So maybe social media, that's what that is now, right? That's the frame on the wall. So yeah, I would take them down pretty quick. But in terms of I don't know that you go and scrub everything. I remember an important conversation with my wife one time, and this is several years ago. It's not a long time ago. But I said, hey, you've never asked about, X, Y, and Z, this person I dated or that person I dated or who I was dating during this period. And she said something that was really instructive. She said, I've never asked because I can't know. And I said, what do you mean you can't know? And she goes, I can't. I just don't want to go there. I love my life and I love our life together. And in my head, I'm thinking, we've been together over a quarter century. And then later on, maybe 3-4 weeks, a month later, I don't remember. But I said, hey, it feels like there's parts of me that you can't love or that you have to pretend don't exist. And I said, that's weird to me. It's not weird that you don't want to hear the intimate details of my old girlfriends. That I totally understand. But it is weird to me that there's parts of me, there's closet doors you can't open. And she smiled and she goes, you got me on that. I think you're right on that. And so then out of the blue, maybe 6 months later, she was like, all right, who are you dating from here to here? And it ended up being a hilarious, funny, no way. It was a fun conversation. But I think we like to pretend that everyone's past doesn't exist up until the moment we're with them. And their history begins the day we say hi, right? And I don't think that's healthy. I think there's a healthier aspect to know. I want to know all of you. I want to know about you. And if there's parts of you that I think I can't know about, my understanding of exposure therapy and working with anxiety and dysthymia, you have to head into that. Tell me about it. I want to know all of you. And there's always the moron who weaponizes, that doesn't mean you go into all of the grotesque details of all of your escapades and all of she was really good at, no, you're a terrible person, break up. But I think there's something about knowing each other's history.
What about, so this situation came up this weekend. So I have a friend of mine that recently got divorced, and we were at her house, and I'm at her house all the time, but one of our other friends happened to know, she was like, you still have one of your wedding pictures up. And she was like, well, he's still the father of my son.
Yeah.
And she had pictures in her house of them as a family. And she's like, well, because this is still his house and these are his parents.
Yeah.
But I know I have, I was married prior, no kids, but I have a box that's our wedding album and stuff like that. And I remember one time years and years ago saying something to my husband about, should I get rid of this? He's like, why would you? It's part of who you are.
And plus, every 6 weeks or 7 weeks, you get half a bottle of red wine, and you're just going through the box, and you're like,
A, no, I don't drink. B, just no.
And
I think that'd be weird if I was doing that. But if the idea that he's like, it's just part of who you are. It's in a box in the attic, but it's throwing it away doesn't make it not exist. And my kids know I was married. And
yeah. So anybody who dates your friend knows she made a life with somebody. And it didn't work out for whatever reason. It didn't work out. And so that's a part of whoever that person's going to date. So pretending that didn't happen is insane. And also, there's that Michael Scott. Remember when he's dating that woman and he cuts out her ex-husband's face and on a ski photo with the family and tapes his face in there, glues his face in there. Don't do that. That's insane, right? And I do think there's a moment where if your friend got remarried, having a bunch of photos in the house of another guy hanging on the wall, that's weird, right? So I can see a bunch of photos on my social media profile if you're newly married to someone who used to have a long-term, that's weird. That's weird. But is what it is.
What about when your iPhone or Facebook account pulls up photos that you would rather not be seeing on your day-to-day life? If you have a painful breakup, then what do you do? Not wanting things to be curated of Facebook saying remember this? And you're like, God, no, I'd rather not.
I maybe I'm crazy. I think part of dealing with pain and part of dealing with trauma is metabolizing it, not avoiding it. And so I want to be able to get to a place. My wife thinks I'm part of it's a pathology for me. I'm friends with almost all, not all of them, but almost all of my exes, even back to high school. If I hear from them or see them, I always remember joy. And they may remember me no, we hate you. We don't like you, John. But I don't know. I always want to work through those things. There's very, very few people that when their picture comes up that I don't at least smile. Either I'm laughing at them or remember when, or that was a good time. I don't like the avoidance thing. So maybe in a weird way, Apple's helping us It gives us little annual reminders of how healthy we actually are or not. At the same time, it's really dangerous to have a bad weekend in your marriage and go check out your old college girlfriend. That's really unhealthy, right? And she's becoming a fantasy. She's becoming a numbing behavior. And also, it's interesting to be like, I wonder where that girl was that I kissed at that dance in 7th grade. Like, where is she at now? That's natural. It's never happened before in human history that we have all that at our fingertips now, which leads to a bunch of weird marital challenges. But I don't know. I think it's messy. And I don't know how Apple does all that stuff. So there you go. Internet's people, you win again.
All right, next question. What is your favorite thing to do on a day off?
So my wife and I went. I had a speaking event. Woe is me at a resort in Mexico. It's pretty awesome, and she came with me, and she laughed, and I was like, "Hey, let's do this, this, and this," and she just cracked up, and she's like, "Nope, you will sleep 20 hours a day. Like every hour you're not working, you're not speaking or doing your thing, you will be cashed." And I was like, "No way." I just go so hard all the time, I just collapse, and so honestly, I like to rest and be chill. This weekend starts, and I go in seasons. This weekend starts hunting season, and so I get rather feral during the season. And people always comment like, "Wow, you haven't shaved in a long time." And I'm like, "Don't speak to me," right? And then I'll go through it's all coming down at the end of January into February. Like, our show's failing. What am I doing? I need to go back and be a professor. This whole thing's awful. And then in March, the sun comes out, and I'm like, let's go for a hike. Like, so it just is cyclical and seasonal for me. Cody, my manager, knows he doesn't take a lot of my emails during the month of February because they're all caustic and he also doesn't jump at everything I suggest in March or April or May because he knows I'm overly want to take the world on. I'll say yes to everything, and then I'll be sad in October, November. So it's just cyclical, but I like to spend time with my kids. I love spending time with my wife. She's a close buddy. I like playing music with the gang. I like to go into concerts. I love going to stand-up comedy. And I like being out in the woods, catching something. What about you? What do you like to do besides just drink and get tattoos?
Seriously. Only because of the show. But I don't, that's the thing, y'all. I don't even drink, so.
Oh my gosh. She lies to y'all, America. I tell the truth. She does not.
I think they know. If it depends on if it was a day like if my husband and I we're home, breakfast.
Whoa, slow down. Family show. Slow down.
Breakfast.
Slow down. Okay, breakfast.
Out if my ideal would be we'd be able to go to Loveless Cafe when it's not a 2.5 hour wait. Have a nice breakfast, walk around downtown, some little tiny town that we have a ton of these here in the area where little town squares with shops and stuff in them. If it's just me and I have a day off, probably a lot of, sadly, I would love to say I have all these, grand things, but it's probably a lot of napping in front of the television, falling asleep. But if I have, if I'm up and about and doing things, I get out in the sun, go take a hike, go walk around. And I also love the idea. I love going to coffee shops by myself, and I love eating meals by myself. No problem doing that whatsoever. Going to a movie by myself, totally fine with all that. I love it.
Isn't she a joy, America?
Because I deal with all of this a lot, so sometimes I need.
She won the lottery.
A little alone time. A little don't talk to me time. All right. What's your favorite Social Distortion song?
Oof. Two of them are a tie. When the Angels Sing, which is pretty extraordinary, off the White Light, White Heat, White Trash album. And also on that same record, my other favorite song by them is I Was Wrong. The song I Was Wrong became an anthem for me back in 2000, 2001 or 2 when it was released. And Mike Ness, the singer of that band, was just the pillar of punk rock attitude. Not like Green Day punks where you have green hair and you're like, oh my gosh, girls. But it was like real thick black boots and jeans, and we're going to fix the car and we're coming over to your house to burn it. It was like old punks. And so he was the picture of, you don't apologize. You don't say, you just go hit the next guy in the room. And when he came out with that song, it was at a pivotal point for me growing up, like going from being a kid, being a college kid to I got to be a grown man now. And for whatever reason, that lodged itself into my soul. Like, I was wrong, and it's okay to say that. And the whole song is called I Was Wrong. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, but those two songs are pretty amazing.
All right, I'm going to go, again, off script, off with this. Favorite Guns N' Roses song?
Favorite Guns N' Roses song? Great question. I've got multiple memories wrapped around them. Is that okay? Patience was a song that me and a guy named Brandon, who is one of the most amazing musicians I've ever played with, we used to play Patience all the time. We had a little acoustic duo, and we'd travel around like little coffee shops and at college and stuff. We'd play, and that was always just the crowd favorite back in the day.
It's such an amazing song.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And he was so talented. It was just, that was fun. I remember Paradise City coming and being the first. That was like my generation's Bohemian Rhapsody. It was like an 8-minute. There's 14 songs. It's just utter chaos, but it's controlled, and there's a sing-along chorus to it. It was just the perfect song for a guy growing up trying to learn what rock and roll was and wanted to have his own band.
That beginning of Paradise City,
just the strum.
when it's just Slash, I have so many freaking memories tied to just that beginning. I mean, I can think of a million things because so you were probably in middle school because I was, what was it, 89?
I was a newborn.
No,
But
you
go ahead.
weren't. 89, I think. And
You were graduating college?
I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah, sure.
And so, but I just have, for some reason, that bit right there, especially a million, a flood of memories.
For nerds, like for music nerds, I listened to that intro strum. It's the most perfect, like time signature wise, tonally, like it's the most perfect that ring, that first chord. I would just back it up, because I was so perfect. And then the end chaos where you can hear everything exploding. And when you see it live and they're running around and there's rockets everywhere, it's just what it's supposed to be. Like whatever you think rock and roll is supposed to be, it is. That song played live. I remember smiling ear to ear. I've seen it twice live. I smiled ear to ear and I didn't stop. It was just every little boy on planet Earth has imagined themselves being Slash, standing up in front of a whole screaming crowd, playing that solo at the end of Paradise City while Axl's running around behind you, just doing somersaults.
Right, probably having a temper tantrum about
of
something.
some sort. But
yeah,
those are important. And then there was just songs when Appetite for Destruction came out. It was just such an inappropriate record, and it was just a way to like be a little rebellious kid without doing anything. You just had to put your headphones on, and much to my chagrin, 25 or 30 years later, when I saw that concert, I was like, oh, all those songs are downloaded in there. Like, I knew every word to every song. So,
oh, yeah. My Michelle. Mr. Brownstone's one of my favorites, and I know it's horrible. I'm fully aware of what it's about, but I love the song.
I remember they come out and they started playing their first song, and I mean, the place erupts. And I'm with three of my oldest friends on the planet. One of the mothers, one of my childhood second moms, she calls me. I live 8 hours away, and she said, I know this is crazy. And this is the mother of one of my oldest friends on the planet who's paraplegic now. She said, I did something crazy. I heard there's a Guns N' Roses show. I bought 4 tickets. Is there any way you could fly down? And the whole old gang go. And I was like, I will be there. And it was it was a fun, wild night. But 2 lines into the first song, I remember going, whoa, I have a daughter. I'm not singing this.
What song was it?
I don't want to say. Like,
was it Rocket Queen or My Michelle?
I just remember going, no, I have a daughter. We're not, this is, Mr. Rose, you're being rude and tacky. It's inappropriate. So I crossed my arms for that song. But then we got back into it. But yeah, I just remember being like, oh my gosh, no kid should have listened to this record.
Well, that's pretty much all music from the 90s.
I know.
That I listened to in my car, and I'm like, oh, this is awful.
I know.
And then I turn it up. And,
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, last question on this one. Favorite Metallica song?
Favorite Metallica song? My gosh, that's fantastic. Going all the way back, there's a song off their Kill 'Em All record called Whiplash that I remember being the fastest. I remember thinking I didn't know how human beings could play a song that fast, and it being electrified. Like I remember being like, "That's what I want to play that fast." And so I remember Whiplash, and I remember all those Ride the Lightning records, and all. I guess if I had to pick one, there's just. This is very unpopular to say, but it is very hard to beat Inner Sandman.
Inner Sandman.
As one of the greatest, as the greatest metal song of all time.
It really is. Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
It is perfect. If I have to pick one, like, to me, it's like Inner Sandman and then everything else.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters. For some reason, I love it.
See, I remember being so upset with that song. Like, I wasn't allowed to listen to the record. Like, oh, you guys sold out. Because when they played one, it was about like a war veteran. They played Sanitarium, it was about someone going crazy. So even their slower songs were about something caustic, right? But then just like James having a bad day, singing about it.
Yeah, it's something in Hetfield's voice in that one that I love. There's something in his voice that I just love.
It sounds like a person being seen naked for the first time. Like, this is me. And there's just that awkwardness to it. That's really, it's pretty rich, yeah. Yeah. But Inner Sandman is the perfect metal song. It's the best metal song ever written. It just is, except for Walk by Pantera. Oh my gosh. But if I'm being objective, Inner Sandman is the greatest metal song of all time. Download the Hallow app today and get 3 free months at hallow.com/Delony.